The sun rose over the horizon, and its light gleamed off the building named so righteously Rags on Elsinore beach, where innocent and perhaps ignorant blood had been spilled by the conflicts of the ownership of property and fright. The infamous Rags, known for its chef Elsinore, who made quite possibly the best and most superb cream of cheese soup on this entire planet of Kaporu. Elsinore had made certain that quality was assured by purchasing the best ingredients available from the farm town of Ursula. Mrs. Knorr was quite persistent about quality. The fact that Ursula had the messiah of worms, the silver earthworm, meant that they had the best soil on Kaporu. Mrs. Knorr was busy attending to the heat on which her tandoori beet soup was being cooked. The sous chef, Mr. Clem, had made all the preparations in the most professional manner possible. Rats scurried around the shelves where rat poison had been placed. Animals were not allowed in Rags. On this particular morning, nobles from the land of Ith, a mere 200,000 miles away, had set sail days ago, and having arrived, had made their way to the soup kitchen on Elsinore beach. They were dressed heavily, as the snow had built its way up to 7 knots, about 3 inches, and the wind chill factor was enough to make one's teeth chatter. One noble in particular was known as Ellis Koth. Mr. Koth was well informed of the notoriety of Rags. He was almost certain that the cold would kill any of the homeless seeking a warm meal on this chilling day. Yet to his disbelief, there was already a long line of vagrants formed outside the soup kitchen, as it was an hour before the doors opened. "Vagabonds, move out of my way! I have very important business to attend to," Mr. Koth called out. No one really took notice, none the less. Mr. Koth made his way to the front of the line. "I beg your pardon, but what gives you the right to enter before any of us?" a scraggly man asked. "If I find one health code problem with this restaurant, I am closing it down," Mr. Koth replied. "Are you with the Enforcement of Health Department?" the man asked. It's my birthday, and I'm having the renowned cream of cheese soup," Mr. Koth said in hesitation. The man looked at the line and then back at Mr. Koth. "The other nobles are all at the end of the line. I don't buy any of your stories." Mr. Koth scoffed. "You, sir, are a lowlife and nobody." "I argue to differ. I read to the sick children and volunteer at the church in the town of Ike." He dare not continue on that line of thought. "Whatever, do as you please, and let the pleasure be what you do." The homeless were underdressed and most assuredly very cold. None of the nobles had bothered to offer a garment to help them warm. Mr. Clem opened the double door, and Mr. Koth made his way inside to the serving table. It should be noted that while Mrs. Knorr finished the tandoori beet soup, a rat defecated after having eaten some rat poison moments earlier. Due to the offset tilt of the shelves, the excrement fell into the almost finished soup, poison and all. When the soup was finally finished, Mrs. Knorr brought the soup in cauldron to the serving table. The aroma filled the air of the dining and kitchen rooms. "Hello, Mrs. Knorr," Mr. Koth called out to her. She paid him no attention and went back to begin a cabbage stew. Mr. Clem was ready to serve Mr. Koth the first bowl of soup for the day. "I was informed that there was a cream of cheese soup. Is that it?" Mr. Koth asked. "That's usually what we serve, but today is the festival of beets, so it's tandoori beet soup." "That will do," said Mr. Koth. Mr. Clem served Mr. Koth a bowl of the soup and continued to serve the others. Mr. Koth grabbed his utensils and went to sit down at one of the tables that sat 10. No one dare sit next to him. By the time the other nobles arrived, they were all out of tandoori beet soup. Mr. Koth clasped his hands in front of himself above the bowl of soup that seemed to have a lingering smell that was potent. "Mighty lords, I feast." Mr. Koth slurped down the soup in no time at all. Then it began to happen. His left eye began twitching, and his arms went numb. Foam formed at his mouth, and his heart stopped beating. Because of how he was sitting, Mr. Cath did not fall down. Instead, remained in a sitting position. Due to the harsh realities of the homeless, none of them died or even fell ill from the small amount of rat poison in the soup, and were quite jolly to have received a warm meal. When Mrs. Knorr closed down the soup kitchen, she went to Mr. Cath to inform him to make his leave. When he didn't respond, she went and sent word for the authorities. The smell of his death hung around the dining room, and 1.5 days later the enforcers of Ike arrived, having to, of course, travel by horseback. Mr. Cath had no pulse, so they took him back to Ike to be seen by the man in charge. The autopsy found it was rat poison, and his narcotic levels were off the charts. Mr. Cath was sent back to the land of Ith for his funeral. The enforcers of Ike condemned Mrs. Knorr for what happened, and informed all who had eaten there at the shop had been poisoned by an unknown being. The rag soup kitchen was closed for all eternity, to never again be used as a soup kitchen on the Elsinore beach.